Have you ever wanted to be like Dunc, think like Dunc, act like Dunc, smell like Dunc? Well, you'll have every opportunity to do just that, or at least some of that, if you enroll into one of my universities. See, I plan on monopolizing the American education system to create a completely homogenous society of Duncs. Now, if that's not something you're into, that is absolutely fine. You'll just have to live in complete squalor with no chance of success in your post-education career. But beyond that, you are more than welcome to simply not partake. Is this all just a fancy and clickbait way of saying I'm going to complete the campaign in 2 Point Campus? Yes, it absolutely is. Not only that though, I'm going to complete the campaign in 2 Point Campus with 3 stars in every campus. But I'm getting way too ahead of myself. In order to establish a monopoly of universities, one must first be in control of a university. So that's where this all begins. I of course had to name my school rather than leaving it as the boring default 2 Point, so I went with a professional and well thought out name that gets across exactly what we'd be teaching. Welcome to Dunc University. Our story begins in the aptly named Freshly Meadows, with nothing but an empty asymmetrical husk of a building. Since these were the early days of STDU, I took it upon myself to teach the students. Sure, I'm unlicensed, have no post-high school education, no teaching experience whatsoever, but with the right connections and enough money, anything is possible. So with 2 new rooms in our otherwise completely barren building, we started our first academic year. A wave of doe-eyed and hopeful freshmen joined me on our wonderful campus, likely after being denied entry into their dream schools, as this was most assuredly not their first choice. But the first choice isn't always the best choice, and my goal is to prove exactly that. After all, a happy student is a profitable student at the end of the day, unless you're one of those orb freaks. Through our introductions, one student caught my eye, a class clown named Piper McGuffin. Piper was a little freak, a little joking man that never took off his silly little red plastic nose. So he was caught skipping class, just off wandering the hallways. So I expelled him, or at least I tried to. When I informed him of his expulsion, he pretended not to hear me, and there was nothing I could do. Already I was foiled in my efforts to establish authority over my new students, but I let it slide because he reminded me of me. I began work on a dormitory, which features rows of beds in an attempt at efficiency that was probably unnecessary, but will continue to show up in future campuses because I just never changed the design. A few other additions were made: bathroom, vending machines, trash, stuff you'd expect in a school, and for the most part things were calm. Fast forward a bit, and I received my first student request from Piper. Piper requested that I build a school library, which is very reasonable, and so I did it. A library was built, and an assistant was hired to work there. But I feel like he's getting a little too much credit. He may be getting a big head, so I also want to add that Piper doesn't wash his hands, so just let that be known. A student lounge was constructed next, as well as a staff room and a new shower room. The star rating system was introduced shortly into the second year, and I was given my first real goals: a campus level of 5, an average happiness rating of 60% or more, and to pass a virtual normality class with a grade C or better. An easy set of goals of which I really only needed to wait to achieve, as my initial building had already set me up for success. This sit and wait approach is one we'll see used quite a bit, which is to say this is how I got the last 2 stars on this campus, through no help from Piper, mind you. Let's move on to the next one. Welcome to Piazza La Natra. We got pizza, we got pasta with meatball, we got focaccia. I don't even know what this is. It's like bread? We got bread. I won't bore you with the details like I did with the first campus. Going forward, just assume I start off by building the essentials for my students to not immediately die, because honestly that's all you really need to do to complete most of the goals anyway. Did throw a pretty sick chef party though, but we also had the goal of winning a campus cook-off, which sounds cool. Sure, I mean, why not, right? So I scheduled the cook-off for the first available time slot and waited. Honestly, I don't know why I'm wasting your time with this. Not only did we win the cook-off in one attempt, but I breezed through the rest of the goals, including winning the county and celebrity cook-offs first try as well. On to Mitten University, I guess. In this campus, we built robots. Wow, cool robots. Wait, why's that robot got a gun? Who taught the silly dog robot to carry a gun? Put that down. Ah! Noblestead's theme is knights. You joust, you learn archery, you get ruthlessly invaded by knights belonging to another school. I don't get why the students don't help out at all with fighting them off. I mean, you're knights, it's your job. Instead, you're leaving it up to the poor janitors just trying to earn a paycheck. There's also a new disease spreading around called rusty bulge, which, yeah man, me too. Me too. Despite all that, this one was just as easy as the others. In fact, I think I spent less time on it than Campus 3. Honestly, so far there just hasn't been much challenge. Hopefully whatever comes next will be a bit harder. No, man, no. Spiffin More was by far the worst challenge in this entire campaign. You start with 0 funds, which, as I'm sure you're aware, is already not a great start. Beyond that, though, you also have some rival that continually harasses you with evil wizards, meteors, and frogs, all while having to put your students through therapy just to help them cope with the fact that they could get struck by a meteor or a frog at any moment. You're just presented with a bunch of new issues that didn't exist previously. Getting the grades up to an average of B+ felt like a Herculean task, and I had to restart not once, but twice. I spent 7 hours in knockoff Hogwarts, but at least I didn't have to pay a transphobe to do it, I guess. Anyway, after the first star, it wasn't nearly as bad, and I was able to get the last 2 in about an hour, but the time that I spent in this millennial nightmare is time I will never get back. It's Cheeseball Time, Fluffboro, where people go bonkers for America's cheesiest pastime. This is another rivalry situation, but instead of evil wizards with incomprehensible power and dubious motivations, we've got rowdy fans and cheeseball games. I again cruised through the goals for the most part, maybe a hiccup here and there, but no restarts this time. Pebberly was an interesting one. The first thing I did was turn my entire starting plot into a dig site, for some reason under the assumption that because I did not start with a building like I normally do, maybe the students would just materialize and not live on campus, and I could just get by with a bunch of dig sites or something. Can you really blame me though? I mean, at this point my brain is broken from witch school, and we're only halfway through this whole challenge. I'm desperately looking for any shortcut I can find. Unfortunately, this specific shortcut turns out to be a long cut, as I am now forced to buy a new plot of land and work from there. I spent basically the first half of the year completely broke, but if you've watched Spiff's video on 2 Point Campus, then you'll know dig sites are a perfectly balanced money-making machine. It was a real rags to riches story where I climbed from at one point being in the negative to hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars by the end of this. The goals were inconsequential, and realistically the only reason I took as long as I did on this campus was my own idiotic misplay in the beginning. Upper Etching is like a liberal arts school where nobody pays tuition or something. Instead of operating at the whims of the students to make sure they receive the best education possible, you're operating at the whims of a media conglomerate bent on grinding your students up in the content mill. One of the final goals for the 3rd star is literally just to generate $2 million. The music industry sure is something, huh? Next up though is Spy School, aka Blundergrad. This was probably my favorite gimmick because it was pretty involved. I still spent like half the time AFK while I waited for some sit and wait goals to complete, but having to stalk my students through the hallways and track down moles was really fun, especially the one time I couldn't find out who it was but narrowed it down to 3 students and just expelled all of them. I just appreciate ultimately that this campus gave me something to do while I was waiting for my goals to complete themselves. Some nice little 007 RP to spice things up, and boy am I glad that I had that, because I genuinely don't even know what the gimmick of Urban Bungle is. Okay, I mean I sort of do. It's science and tech and futuristic. It's kind of like the robot school, but more, I guess. I don't know, you just kind of teach nerds or something. Breaking Point is basically the opposite of Urban Bungle. Urban Bungle is the school for nerdy dweebs that want to learn about dumb science and philosophy shit.
The rats are all like this. The rat goes like this. So the rat's like this. The normal rat is like this. That's the normal rat.
Breaking Point is the cool party school where everyone has sex and listens to music too loud and other cool stuff like that. You also don't make money through tuition with this school, but instead of getting paid based on how well students translate into industry plants like before, you get paid based on how happy they are. So naturally I turned it into a clown college. Everyone was pretty happy with that. We also threw big beach parties where everyone threw down and got crazy. And this is it, the final campus. We've been through a lot up to this point, you and I. Mostly me though. I mean, Jesus Christ, I'm still not over that wizard shit. With the final campus, 2 Point University, we're given a blank slate and free reign. This campus is the closest to sandbox mode that the campaign gets. The map is big and empty, there's no pre-built structures to work with. The goals aren't catered to a specific style of play at all. They're very broad, make money, get good grades, so on and so forth. This is my campus, the groundwork for my cartel of knowledge. Up to this point, I was doing what I was told. I wasn't truly in charge, but now I've been granted the keys to the kingdom by Joe Biden himself to indoctrinate the youth and push the gay agenda forward. And it all started, as it always does, with clowns. Do you remember Piper? How I said he reminded me of myself? Consider him the blueprint for the future. The joking around, the poor grades, the not washing his hands. Piper reminded me of me because he was me. And that is how I started my monopoly on education. I'd just like to end all this with a question. Why didn't I split this into multiple videos? And why aren't you subscribed?